rip and tear until it is done.
The ripping and the tearing. You're damn right, it's time for the ripping and the tearing. The ripping and the tearing. This is my review of Doom the Dark Ages for PC. So let's talk a little bit about this game. Doom the Dark Ages is a prequel to Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal that tells an epic cinematic story worthy of the Doomslayer's legend. Players will step into the blood-stained boots of the Doomslayer in this dark and sinister medieval war against hell. It's a dark fantasy sci-fi single-player experience that delivers the searing combat and over-the-top visuals of the incomparable Doom franchise, powered by the latest ID Tech engine. Yeah, so this game is developed by ID Software and published by Bethesda Softworks. So that means the same teams from Doom Eternal are back to work on Doom the Dark Ages, minus the musical composer Mick Gordon, which is a huge loss, but I'll get into that later. As I mentioned before, this game is powered by the ID Tech 8 game engine. This is an in-house game engine that's designed and developed by ID Software from the ground up. And you know I always love when companies have their own game engines, so props to ID Software for doing their own thing. So the game's story starts out on the alien planet Argent Denure. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. You play as the Doomslayer, a superhuman warrior enhanced by the godlike makers who keep him captive as their ultimate weapon against Hell's demonic forces. The story follows the Slayer during the Unholy Crusade, a war where demons, led by a malevolent warlord, invade Argent Denure, clashing with the Night Sentinels and their King Novik. Enslaved and unleashed only to fight, the Slayer's rage grows as he battles to protect humanity's allies, wielding brutal weapons like the Shield Saw and piloting mechs and dragons. The narrative explores the origins of the Doomslayer's legend and his rise as Hell's greatest fear. So yeah, that's a little synopsis of the story of the game. You know, the story though, it did just enough to keep me engaged and wanting to know more about the Slayer, honestly. So let's talk a little bit about the good aspects of the gameplay. The movement and combat feel pretty damn smooth, making it fun to run and gun all around the arena, you know, ripping and tearing, the ripping and the tearing through the demonic hordes. And then you pair this with the chainsaw shield, and you have a recipe for fucking destruction. I mean, you get a chainsaw shield that allows you to block and parry attacks, as well as cover large distances with the shield bash. And it also turns you into Captain America, as you can just throw your shield and chop enemies in half and stun them. It's pretty badass. The shield bash ability kind of takes the place of the grappling hook from Doom Eternal, which is good and bad depending on how you look at it. I would actually rather have the grappling hook, as it was more fun to grapple shotgun in Doom Eternal for me, but that's just my personal preference. They also allow you to upgrade your shield abilities and even use different shield runes, which offer different boosts and playstyles. I appreciated that. As you collect gold and materials, you'll be able to upgrade your guns, melee weapons, and shield at different sentinel shrines as you find them throughout the game. These upgrades include more damage, longer stun rates, faster cooldowns on melee strikes, that type of stuff. And you can choose between 3 different melee weapons. You got the Power Gauntlet, the Flail, and then the Dread Mace. Each has different abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. I rolled with the Dread Mace most of the game because, you know, it was just badass and I enjoyed the bludgeoning it provided. Most of the guns feel pretty good to use depending on what your preferred playstyle is. I found myself sticking mostly to the Ravager, the Accelerator, the Super Shotgun, and the Chain Shot. I just didn't find the need to use much more than that, but I still had a good time while only using those weapons, honestly. The reason why I only used a few different weapons is because, for better or worse, this game is not like Doom Eternal, where you have to switch weapons for every different enemy type's weaknesses. In this game, you still have to switch in certain situations, but it's nowhere near the level of cycling and switching that you did in Doom Eternal. In my opinion, the reason for this is because this game feels like a hybrid between Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. And I say that because from my experience, Doom the Dark Ages gameplay is faster than Doom 2016, but it's slower than Doom Eternal. And as I was playing through, I found myself missing the speed of Doom Eternal, even though I was okay with not having to switch and cycle through weapons so much. Dark Ages just isn't as fast paced as Eternal was, and it started to weigh on me the more I played. I found it funny too because I actually got filtered hard by Doom Eternal in the later difficulties because I was absolute garbage at cycling through weapons for every damn enemy type. But I absolutely loved the gameplay, speed, and smoothness of Doom Eternal. It was so fucking fun. The gameplay of that game was an absolute blast for me, you know? I was just too bad to keep up at the higher difficulties. In Dark Ages, I just wanted to zip around with my grappling hook and blow wigs back with my shotgun, but I just couldn't replicate that feeling here. You can still zip around the level and crush enemies with your shield bash ability, but it's just not the same without the grappling hook. Also, the platforming aspects in this game felt more fluid to me than in Eternal. It's easy to see the marked walls that you can climb up, and jumping from platform to platform is fairly smooth and forgiving. You don't take any damage when you fall off a cliff or miss a jump, so you can afford to make plenty of mistakes. I enjoyed searching out treasures and solving platforming puzzles, even though the puzzles weren't very challenging. At least you usually got good rewards for doing the platforming and solving puzzles in this game. Usually. During combat, when you get enemies' health down far enough, you have the option to do execution moves, which you all know I love. I love me some execution moves a la Space Marine 2, where you start the ripping and the tearing, and you can do that here to restore some of your health and ammo. Anything from stomping on a demon's head, to cutting a demon's face off, to slicing the demon in half. It's fucking brutal, and I'm all about it. You know, you guys already know that if the game is fucking brutal, it's getting points for me right out the gate, if you know what I mean. You can find life sigils that bring you back to life and restore your health when you die, but once you run out, you have to start back at the last checkpoint. These are literal lifesavers, although I didn't have to use very many at all on normal difficulty. The nice thing about Dark Ages is that it lets you customize your difficulty settings and modifiers to make your experience as easy or as challenging as you'd like to play it. This adds lots of replayability and will no doubt lead to crazy speedrun challenge runs in the future. Alright, let's talk about some of the bad aspects of the gameplay. I had a good time playing through this game, but during my entire playthrough, something just felt off. The gameplay is fun, but it wasn't quite what I expected from a Doom game, I guess. Like I said, I love the speed of Doom Eternal, and I was hoping that they would expand on that going forward, but this game scales the speed way back to me. After playing through Dark Ages, I really feel that was a mistake to go in that direction. While you can still run and gun your way around the arena, even traveling quickly with your shield bash, it just wasn't the same level of fun for me zipping around with my grapple shotgun combo in Doom Eternal, blowing wigs back. Dodge, dodge, dodge. You guys know what I'm talking about if you played it. I found myself just wanting to go back and play Eternal again, honestly. Even though I got filtered hard as hell on harder difficulties, I would still rather try to get better and play that than keep playing this. And that's not saying that this game is bad per se, it's just that Eternal exists, and I think I prefer that game over this if I had to choose. As much as I love the rippin' and the tearing of the shield saw, I want my damn grapple hook back. I found the weapon wheel also to be very frustrating at times, since it seemed to have this slight delay to it, and it just wasn't snappy for what you'd want in a game like this where you'd find yourself cycling through weapons often. Luckily though, Dark Ages is not like Eternal, and you don't have to switch your weapons quite that often, so you can overlook this little annoyance. And like I said, platforming makes its return here from Eternal, but it's way more brain dead than before. And you find yourself mindlessly going through the motions to solve a platform puzzle just to get 10 gold. Like I said before, most of the time you'll get a ruby or something, but there's times when you do all this stupid shit just to get 10 gold. You're like, damn, just burned a bunch of time. I mean, I literally turned my brain off when I was doing many of the puzzles because I just wanted to get back to the rippin' and the tearing. But I also needed that ruby for my upgrade, so, you know, I did it. I did it. Just seemed like some filler stuff, you know, to pad out your playtime, honestly. Now, there are these levels in which you get to play as a mech slayer, or fly around on a dragon companion. I called them my Demon Zord and my Dragon Zord. Dee 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 dee. You know? It was a novel little change up here, but it was kind of boring and straightforward. I just wanted to get back to the rippin' and the tearing. But it was fun, I guess. Now, this game only offers you a single player campaign, and that's it for content. There's literally nothing else to do. There's no horde mode, there's no co-op, There's no multiplayer. There's nothing. I can't believe they didn't add any multiplayer modes at all to this game. Now I understand that they had some cheap multiplayer battle mode or something in Doom Eternal. I never really played it. But I've wondered for years why the fuck Doom doesn't have straight deathmatch, team deathmatch, and capture the flag multiplayer modes. I feel like it's such a missed opportunity that we don't have a good old-fashioned Doom arena shooter multiplayer on this new ID Tech 8 game engine. Maybe some of you know why they don't put multiplayer verse modes like that in Doom games? And if you do, please explain, because I don't know, man. I personally would love to play Doom multiplayer. But anyways, to summarize the gameplay, overall I did have fun and enjoy my playthrough of Doom the Dark Ages. The movement and gunplay were smooth and fluid, and I enjoyed slaying the demon hordes of hell in this one. There was enough content there to keep me engaged during my playthrough, and maybe for a second playthrough, but until DLCs drop, there's nothing else for me to do in the game right now. As fun as the single player experience is, I think they dropped the ball with not including any multiplayer modes whatsoever into this game. It's honestly shocking that there's not even some kind of horde mode in the game for you to play. Not even single player horde mode. Despite those gripes though, I did have a good amount of fun playing through this game. Alright, moving on to the good aspects of the visuals. This game looks gorgeous most of the time. I didn't even have my graphics all the way up, and it still looked awesome. I was playing on high. Most of the cutscenes are very well done and look almost lifelike. I mean, on some close-ups you can even see individual pores on people's skin, it's crazy. And the atmosphere of the game is overall well done. They did a good job of making you feel like you're in a really fucked up place or situation, and you are, because you're in hell. Some of the aesthetics on certain levels reminded me of something out of the Alien franchise of movies. Prometheus in particular. It had that creepy alien hell vibe down perfectly. Alright, the bad aspects of the visuals. Even though the game still looks great, nothing about it does anything new or innovative. This game could have been made any time in the last 10 years and you probably wouldn't notice much of a difference. For instance, it pretty much looks just as good or on par with Doom Eternal, which released in 2020. Some of the cutscenes had a few texture pop-ins here and there for me, and it could be a little distracting. I mean, a few times I had weird facial shadows going on where it couldn't make up its mind what shape it wanted to take on the underside of a person's face. It was a really weird glitch to experience, to be honest, but nothing game-breaking. I got over it. But that could also just be my computer, so I won't hold it against the game itself. Everything else looked pretty damn great though. So to summarize the visuals, while the game often looks great, it still looks like a game from 5 years ago. There's nothing new or innovative here visually, but that's not to say that makes it bad. Actually, the things that they do have here, they do very well, and the game does look visually stunning most of the time. Alright, let's move on to the good aspects of the sound. The soundtrack kicks ass right out of the gate at the main menu, setting the tone perfectly of the game and what to expect. The doom metal's back on the menu, boys. There's nothing better than ripping and tearing, while the metal music slams on all cylinders. I mean, it just adds so much to the rush and thrill of the fast-paced combat. This is some Legion of Doom blood rush. It's fucking awesome. The sound effects are on point here too. The guns all have unique sounds to them, and it goes a long way in making them feel different from one another. From the destruction, to the music, to the weapons, it just all works together to add to your rippin' and tearin' experience. Alright, moving on to the bad aspects of sound. Unfortunately, a big unfortunately, the OG music composer from Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, Mick Gordon, had a falling out with ID Software sometime after Eternal released, and so he did not compose the music for Doom the Dark Ages. This task was taken up by a music production team called Finishing Move Inc. Finishing Move Inc. seemed to try to replicate the style that is Mick Gordon in this one, and to their credit, they did a great job, but as a music guy, I could feel the loss right away in the game. First of all, the game does a bad job of kicking the music in when it should. Sometimes you'll be fighting hordes of enemies for a few minutes with no metal music whatsoever. Or maybe it kicks in when you're just finishing up the last few enemies and then it goes away right away. And when it does kick in, the songs are not on the level of Mick Gordon. Mick has a certain style to him, and you can feel him missing during the music, especially during the end of the game when things should be getting more frantic and whatnot. When I first heard the menu music track, I was so excited to get to the rippin' and tearin', but as I played, I kind of forgot about the music because it just didn't play that often for me, and when it did, the tracks were pretty forgettable. But other than that unfortunate music situation, the sound was otherwise on point. So to summarize the sound, as far as the sound effects and atmosphere go, the music and sound are very well done. The sounds work very well together here to create that hellish environment. Unfortunately, it does suffer a bit without having Mick Gordon doing the music here. You can literally feel his presence missing, almost like the series lost some of its soul. As cliche as that is, but I don't know any other way to describe it. It'll be noticeable to longtime fans for sure. Alright, so what are my final thoughts on Doom: The Dark Ages? I had a fun time playing through Doom: The Dark Ages, honestly, but after finishing it, I just felt the game was missing something. The gameplay was smooth and fluid, the story was engaging enough, and the music was good, but the game felt off. It was slower paced than I had hoped for, and the music came off as someone trying to LARP as Mick Gordon but failing. I wanted Doom Eternal speed with slightly less weapon cycling, and I got a Doom 2016 Doom Eternal hybrid, where the game slows down and you become the Captain America of hell. The graphics look awesome and didn't disappoint when it came to showing off the brutal nature of the Doomslayer, and I truly appreciated that. The music was okay, but trying too hard to be Mick Gordon while also barely ever kicking the music in during gameplay was a huge disappointment for me. And the fact that, as of right now, there's not more content at all except the single player campaign is a huge letdown. I just don't understand how you don't have any multiplayer modes whatsoever. I mean, you don't even have a single player horde mode. That's fucking crazy in my book. So should you buy this game? No! I cannot recommend this game at full price. The game just doesn't have enough content and isn't innovative enough to warrant a full price purchase. Especially since this game is on the Game Pass, so if you really need to play it, just get Game Pass for a month. You won't need it for longer than that because the game doesn't have any other content right now except for the campaign. And that'll take you about 20 hours maybe, and then you're done. Having said all that, this is still a pretty fun game to play. But I would wait a year to buy this game for $20 when it comes with all of the DLCs. That's probably the best way to go here. So yeah guys, if you got this far, let me know what you guys think down below. Did you play this game? Do you agree with me, disagree with me? And how do you feel about the Doom franchise in general going forward? Let me know down below guys, but until next time, I'm out of here. Peace.